Get out. 2 words. One fearless waitress. And the most dangerous man in the city, stunned into silence. Ava Morrison didn't know that telling Vincenzo Moretti to leave her table would change everything. She didn't know he was untouchable. Didn't know his name was whispered in fear across the entire city. Didn't know that defying him was the kind of mistake people didn't survive. But she did it anyway. And what happened next would shake them both to their core. In a world where silence means survival, Ava Morrison was the only one who refused to bow. One exhausted night, one reckless sentence, and suddenly she was on the radar of a man who could destroy her with a single phone call, or something far worse. What started as an ordinary late shift at La Serena Trattoria exploded into a dangerous collision of pride, power, and unspoken consequences. When Ava stood her ground against a man everyone else feared, she didn't just defend her dignity, she unknowingly triggered an obsession that would consume them both. But what happened next shocked everyone, even him. Before we dive into this unbelievable story, make sure to subscribe and comment below where you're watching from, your city, your country. Because this isn't just about a waitress and a crime boss. It's about what happens when someone refuses to be invisible. Now, let's uncover the truth behind the 2 words that made a mafia boss smile. The air inside La Serena Trattoria was thick, not with the comforting aroma of simmering marinara and fresh-baked bread, but with the invisible weight of exhaustion that clings to the end of a double shift. It was a modest family restaurant, the kind with checkered tablecloths and amber hanging bulbs that cast warm, forgiving shadows across scuffed wooden tables. Tucked between a corner laundromat and a struggling bodega, La Serena wasn't glamorous. But it was honest work. And for Ava Morrison, honest work was all she had. Ava hated the dinner rush, but she took it anyway. The tips were decent, the customers too tired to be difficult, and the rhythm, chaotic as it was, gave her less time to think about overdue bills, her brother's latest school suspension, or the fact that her car had been making that grinding noise for 3 weeks and she couldn't afford to fix it. Tonight, she was running on fumes. 2 broken nails, a pulsing headache, and exactly 0 patience left in her reserves. She moved through the dining room with the practiced efficiency of someone who had learned to survive by becoming invisible. Polite smiles, quick hands, eyes that didn't linger. The late shift allowed the real Ava to emerge. The woman in her late 20s with natural hair pulled back in a practical bun, shoulders squared against a world that constantly tried to push her down, and a spine made of something harder than bone. She could carry 5 plates at once and dodge a handsy customer with the precision of a dancer. She had learned to read a room in seconds. Who tipped well, who complained, who needed to be handled with care. Tonight, she thought she was alone in her understanding of the space. She was wrong. The regulars started filtering out around 9:30. Couples paid their checks. Families bundled sleepy children into coats. The kitchen staff began their nightly cleanup, the clang of pots and the hiss of the industrial sink creating a familiar soundtrack. Ava stood at the server station, folding cloth napkins with mechanical precision, her movements rhythmic and meditative. Her attention, however, kept drifting to the corner booth, the one that had been empty all night until he walked in. She'd felt the shift immediately. The way conversations dropped mid-sentence. The way her coworker Mario suddenly found an urgent reason to disappear into the back. The way even the ambient noise seemed to retreat, as if the restaurant itself was holding its breath. For men had been scattered at the bar earlier, regulars who came in twice a month, always polite, always overdipping, always speaking in low Italian that Ava had learned not to hear. When the man in the charcoal suit entered, they'd all straightened, eyes forward, silence absolute. Ava had seen fear before. She'd grown up around it, learned its language, understood its texture. But this was different. This was reverence. The man who sat alone in the corner booth wasn't overwhelmingly tall, but he occupied space like gravity bent around him. His suit was tailored to perfection, his dark hair slicked back with old-world precision, and his expression, cold, carved, calculating, belonged to someone who had never once in his life had to ask for anything twice. Ava had never seen him before, but somehow she knew. Vincenzo Moretti. The name whispered through the restaurant like a ghost. The man police couldn't touch. The man reporters spoke about in carefully neutral tones. The man who ran half the city from shadows, so deep even daylight couldn't reach them. And he had chosen her section. Ava exhaled slowly, rolling her aching shoulders. She didn't have time for this. She had rent due in 4 days, a brother who needed new shoes, and a soul too tired to play games with powerful men who thought the world owed them submission. She grabbed her notepad, steadied her expression, and walked toward the storm. The black Mercedes idled 2 blocks from La Serena, engine purring like a satisfied predator. Inside, Vincenzo Moretti sat in the back seat, fingers steepled beneath his chin, eyes fixed on nothing in particular. His driver, Luca, knew better than to speak. His lieutenant, Romano, sat in the passenger seat, phone already in hand, waiting. The silence stretched for 30 seconds. Then Vincenzo's voice cut through it, low and precise. The waitress. Romano didn't need clarification. Sir, I want everything. Name, address, family, debts. Everything she's hiding and everything she thinks is safe. Vincenzo's tone was clinical, detached, the voice of a man ordering office supplies, not an invasion of privacy. Pull the staff records. Cross-reference the schedule. I want it done before sunrise. Romano's fingers moved across his phone screen. Just her, or the entire staff? All of them. But I want her file first. Luca caught Romano's eyes in the rearview mirror. They both understood what that meant. In their world, interest was a weapon, and Vincenzo Moretti never showed interest without reason. By 3:47 a.m., the file sat open on Vincenzo's desk. Ava Lynn Morrison, age 28. No criminal record. He scanned the details with the focus of a surgeon examining an X-ray. Modest one-bedroom apartment in a building with 3 noise complaints and a broken elevator. Rent, $1,450. Overdue by 11 days. Utility bills stacking up like dominoes waiting to fall. No car note. She didn't own one anymore. Repossessed last year. One dependent, Malik Morrison, age 16. Brother, not son, but the responsibility sat on her shoulders like an inheritance. Truancy issues. 2 suspensions this semester. Guidance counselor noted peer pressure concerns and possible gang affiliation risks. No parents. Mother deceased, cancer, 6 years ago. Father unknown. Vincenzo leaned back in his leather chair, the dim light from his desk lamp carving shadows across his face. Most men in his position would see desperation, leverage. A woman 1 bad month away from catastrophe, easy to manipulate, easy to control, easy to own. But Vincenzo had spent 20 years reading people the way others read contracts. And what he saw in Ava Morrison's file wasn't weakness. It was a woman holding a crumbling world together with nothing but will. She worked 60-hour weeks, never missed a shift, sent Malik to a school outside their district, better education, safer environment, though it cost her bus fare she couldn't afford. She had no credit cards, no loans, no help. And yet tonight, exhausted and cornered, she looked him in the eye and said no. Vincenzo's mouth curved, not quite a smile, but something close. Something unsettling. Interesting, he murmured to the empty room. He reached for his phone. Texted Romano. Surveillance. Discreet. Daily reports. The response came instantly. Understood. Vincenzo told himself it was precaution. Information gathering. Strategic awareness. But deep in the cold, calculating machinery of his mind, something unfamiliar stirred. Curiosity. Ava kicked off her shoes the second she walked through her apartment door, the cheap lock clicking behind her like a sigh of relief. Malik, she called, dropping her purse on the kitchen counter. No answer. She moved down the narrow hallway, pushing open his bedroom door. He was sprawled on his bed, headphones on, phone glowing in the darkness. Hey. She knocked on the doorframe. You eat. Malik pulled one earbud out, barely looking at her. Yeah. What did you have? Ramen. Ava bit back, the lecture forming on her tongue. She was too tired, too worn. You do your homework? It's done. Malik. I said it's done. His tone sharpened, defensive in that way that made her stomach tighten. She studied him, her baby brother who wasn't a baby anymore, whose shoulders had broadened and whose eyes had grown harder in ways that scared her. There were bruises on his knuckles, fresh ones. You get in a fight? It's nothing. Doesn't look like nothing. Malik finally met her gaze, and for a second she saw the scared kid he used to be. Then the walls slammed back up. Just some guys at school. I handled it. What guys? Drop it, Ava. I'm not gonna. I said drop it. He shoved his earbuds back in, turning toward the wall. Ava stood there, helpless rage and exhaustion warring in her chest. She wanted to grab him, shake him, demand answers. But she'd learned the hard way that pushing Malik when he was like this only made him pull further away. She closed his door quietly. In the kitchen, she poured herself a glass of water with shaking hands, staring at the stack of unopened envelopes on the counter. Red stamps. Final notices. Threats wrapped in corporate language. Her coworker Sophia had texted earlier. Girl, you okay? You really told off that guy? Ava had responded with a thumbs-up emoji and nothing else. Because how could she explain that standing up to that man, whoever he was, had felt like the first real breath she'd taken in months? That for once, just once, she hadn't bent? She didn't regret it. But as she looked at the bills, at Malik's closed door, at the life she was barely holding together with duct tape and prayer, she wondered what it would cost her. Outside, 2 blocks away, a black sedan sat in the shadows, watching, waiting, recording. The second Vincenzo Moretti walked through the door of La Serena Trattoria, the temperature dropped 10 degrees. It was 7:43 p.m., peak dinner rush. Families crowded into booths, the kitchen was slammed, and Ava had 3 tables waiting on refills. She was in the middle of balancing a tray of pasta dishes when she felt it. That shift in atmospheric pressure, that collective inhale of dread. She turned. There he was. Same charcoal suit. Same granite expression. Same aura of controlled violence wrapped in expensive fabric. Mario, the other server, actually stumbled backward into a chair. Sophia's tray rattled in her hands. Even the kitchen went quiet. Nico, the line cook, stuck his head through the window, saw who it was, and immediately retreated. Ava set down her tray. Slowly, deliberately. You've got to be kidding me. She watched him scan the room with those glacial eyes, watched him dismiss every other table, every other seat. And then, of course, he walked straight to her section. The same corner booth, as if he'd reserved it, as if he owned it. Maybe he did. Ava grabbed her notepad, exhaled through her nose, and walked over. No hesitation, no fear, just exhaustion and a headache that hadn't quit since yesterday. Good evening, she said, voice flat. Decided to actually order food tonight? His eyes lifted to hers. Something flickered there, amusement maybe, or calculation. Water. No ice. Thrilling choice. She scribbled it down. Anything else? Or, are we doing this dance again? What dance? The one where you sit here making everyone nervous while I pretend you're a normal customer. She met his gaze without blinking. Spoiler alert, you're not pulling it off. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost imperceptible. You're very bold for someone who can't afford to lose this job. Ava's pen stopped moving. Her jaw tightened. Excuse me? I said. I heard what you said. Her voice dropped, cold as steel. What I want to know is how you know anything about what I can or can't afford. Vincenzo leaned back, fingers laced together on the table. Relaxed. Predatory. I make it my business to know things. Then you should know I don't appreciate being investigated like I'm some kind of. She stopped herself, swallowed the anger rising like bile. You want water? I'll get you water. You want to play mind games? Find someone else. She turned to leave. Ava. Her name on his lips stopped her cold. She didn't turn around. Sit. I'm working. I'll make it worth your time. Now she did turn, eyes blazing. I'm not for sale. I didn't say you were. His expression remained unreadable. But I am curious why you're still here. Here at work? Because I need the paycheck. Here at your table? Because apparently I drew the short straw. No. He tilted his head slightly. Here in this city, this neighborhood, this life, you're clearly capable of more. Ava laughed, sharp, bitter. Oh, you've got me all figured out after one background check. That's cute. I know you work 60-hour weeks. I know your brother's in trouble. I know your rent is overdue and your car was repossessed. I know. Stop. Her voice cut through the air like a blade. You don't know anything about me. You know numbers, facts, data, but you don't know why I'm still standing. Why I get up every morning. Why I haven't broken yet. Silence stretched between them. The restaurant buzzed around them. Laughter, clinking silverware, the hiss of the kitchen. But in their corner, the world had narrowed to just two people locked in an unspoken battle of wills. So tell me, Vincenzo said quietly, why would I? Because I'm asking. And I should care what you want because, he said, leaning forward, I could help. Ava's laugh was sharp. There it is. The offer. Let me guess, you'll pay my rent, fix my problems, make everything easy. And in return, what? I owe you? Belong to you? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. She stepped closer, voice dropping to barely above a whisper. I've met men like you my whole life. Different tax brackets, same script. You think money buys people. It doesn't. It just buys their desperation. She straightened. Your water. I'll be right back. When Ava returned, Vincenzo was on his phone. He took the glass without comment, drank precisely half, and stood. I'm leaving. Shocking. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a black leather wallet, extracted 10 crisp $100 bills, and laid them on the table. Ava stared. The water was free. That's not for the water. I know what it's for. And I'm not taking it. It's a tip. It's a test. She picked up the bills, held them out. And I'm not interested in passing. Vincenzo didn't move, didn't take the money, just watched her with those calculating eyes. You can't be bought, he said. Not a question, an observation. Congratulations. You finally got something right. He smiled then, a real smile, small and genuine, and somehow more dangerous than anything that had come before. Fascinating, he murmured. He turned and walked out, leaving the money on the table. Ava stood there, bills in hand, heart pounding with rage, and something else she couldn't name. Sophia rushed over the second the door closed. Girl, are you insane? That's $1,000. It's a collar, Ava said quietly. She folded the bills, walked to the register, and stuffed them in an envelope. Give this to charity. I don't want it. Outside, in the Mercedes, Romano turned to Vincenzo. She refused it. I know. Sir, with respect. What are you doing? Vincenzo stared through the tinted window at the restaurant, at the woman inside who'd just rejected more money than she'd make in 2 weeks. Learning, he said softly. And for the first time in 20 years, Vincenzo Moretti realized he'd found something he couldn't intimidate, buy, or control. It terrified him. It thrilled him. He wanted more. The envelope was taped to their apartment door. No name. No return address. Just a plain manila envelope with something bulky inside, hanging there like a noose. Ava stared at it for 3 full seconds before her exhaustion-fogged brain registered what she was seeing. It was 11:47 p.m. She'd just finished a double shift. Her feet were screaming, and all she wanted was to collapse into bed. Instead, she peeled the envelope off the door with shaking hands. Inside, a crumpled $20 bill and a note scrawled in aggressive block letters. Your brother owes $800. You got 5 days. We know where you work. The world tilted. Ava shoved through the door, envelope clutched in her fist. Malik. He wasn't in his room, wasn't in the bathroom. The apartment was dark, silent, empty. She called his phone, straight to voicemail. Texted, "Where are you?" No response. She paced the narrow living room, note trembling in her hands, mind racing through every worst-case scenario. Gang initiation, drug debt, stolen merchandise, protection money. No. No, no, no. Not Malik. Not this. He came home at 1:23 a.m. Ava was waiting in the dark, sitting on the couch, note on the coffee table in front of her like evidence at a crime scene. The door opened. Malik froze when he saw her. Where were you? Her voice was deadly calm. Out. Out where? Just out. With friends. Ava stood, picked up the note, held it out. What is this? Even in the darkness, she saw his face change, saw the fear flash across his features before he could hide it. It's nothing. $800 is nothing? Her voice cracked. Malik, what did you do? I didn't do anything. They just. He stopped, jaw clenched. Who's they? Some guys from the neighborhood. They said I took something. I didn't. Ava, I swear, but they won't listen and… What guys? Name's Malik. Now. I can't. His voice dropped to a whisper. If I tell you, they'll… They'll what? Ava's hands were shaking now, rage and terror fighting for control. Hurt you? Hurt me? Baby, they're already threatening us. Malik's eyes glistened. 16 years old and trying so hard to be a man, but in that moment, he looked like the scared little boy who'd cried at their mother's funeral. I can handle it, he said. How? How are you going to handle $800 in 5 days? He didn't answer, because there was no answer. Ava called the police at 6:47 a.m. She reported the threat, gave them the note, explained about Malik, the gang pressure, the demand for money. The officer on the phone sounded bored. Has anyone physically harmed you or your brother? No, but… Then there's not much we can do. File a report online. Someone will follow up if there's an escalation. If there's an escalation, they're demanding money. They know where I work. Ma'am, we'll add it to the file. That's all I can do. The line went dead. Ava sat on her kitchen floor, phone in her lap, and allowed herself exactly 2 minutes to cry. Then she wiped her face, stood up, and went to work. That night, Ava tried something desperate. She found them 2 blocks from Malik's school, 3 young men leaning against a graffitied wall, hoodies up, eyes tracking every passerby like surveillance cameras. She recognized one, Demetrius, a kid who used to live in their building before his family got evicted. Demetrius. He turned, surprised. Then his expression hardened. Yo, you Malik's sister? Yeah. And we need to talk about this money situation. The other 2 laughed. One of them, tall, snake mean smile, stepped forward. Ain't no situation, sweetheart. Your brother took product. Product costs money. Simple math. Malik didn't take anything. That's not what we heard. Then you heard wrong. He's 16 years old. He's not involved in whatever you're… He got involved the second he stepped into our territory. Snake Smile leaned closer. 800. 5 days. Or things get uncomfortable. Ava held her ground even as her heart hammered against her ribs. I don't have $800. Then I guess you better find it. His smile widened. Pretty girl like you? Lots of ways to make money fast. Rage flashed white-hot through her veins. Touch me or my brother and I'll… You'll what? He laughed. Call the cops? They don't care about people like us, Mama. You know that. Ava wanted to scream, wanted to fight, wanted to burn the whole neighborhood down. Instead, she turned and walked away, their laughter following her like smoke. She thought she was hiding it well. Professional smile. Efficient service. No one at La Serena needed to know her world was imploding, but Vincenzo noticed the tremor in her hands when she set down water glasses, the shadows under her eyes, darker than before, the way she held herself, coiled tight like a spring about to snap. He watched her navigate the dining room with that same fierce pride, but something was different. Something was wrong. Romano, Vincenzo said quietly into his phone. The girl's family situation. I need an update. Now. Sir, we haven't. Then start. His voice was ice. I want to know what's happening. Who's threatening her? And I want it before sunrise. He hung up. Across the restaurant, Ava delivered a tray of food with mechanical precision, her smile never reaching her eyes. Vincenzo's jaw tightened. Someone was hurting her, and he was going to find out who. Romano stood in Vincenzo's office at 4:32 a.m., tablet in hand, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Talk, Vincenzo said from behind his desk, voice flat. Romano swiped through his notes. The Morrison kid, Malik, got caught in the crossfire of a turf dispute 3 weeks ago. Street gang called the Southside Vipers accused him of stealing 2 kilos of product from a stash house. He swears he didn't, but he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. They're demanding $800 as restitution. And if he doesn't pay, escalation. Probably violence. They've already left threats at the apartment, confronted the sister. Romano hesitated. They implied other methods of payment. Vincenzo's expression didn't change, but his fingers stopped moving across the papers on his desk. The silence that followed was the kind that made grown men nervous. Names, Vincenzo said quietly. Leader goes by Snake. Real name Marcus Jennings. 22. Multiple priors, assault, distribution, extortion. Runs with about 8 guys, all small time. They operate out of. I don't care where they operate. Vincenzo stood, buttoning his suit jacket with precise movements. I care that they threatened her. Romano blinked. Sir, they threatened her. Vincenzo repeated, each word deliberate. They stood in front of Ava Morrison and made her feel unsafe. In my city. With respect, sir, she's not connected to any of our operations. This is just neighborhood. I didn't ask for your assessment, Romano. Vincenzo's eyes were glacial. Ask for names. You gave me names. Now I'm giving you orders. Romano straightened. Yes, sir. Send 2 men. Not our usual contractors, someone subtle. I want the Vipers to receive a message tonight. Very clear. Very simple. Vincenzo leaned forward, palms flat on his desk. The Morrison family is untouchable. The debt is erased. If anyone approaches that girl or her brother again, they won't live to regret it. And if they ask who's protecting the Morrisons, they don't get to ask questions. They get to disappear if they don't comply. Vincenzo's voice dropped. Soft pressure, Romano. I want them scared, not dead. but they need to understand the scale of their mistake. Romano nodded slowly. This is unusual, sir. Noted. Now go. The door closed. Vincenzo stood alone in his office, staring at the file photo of Ava Morrison clipped to the surveillance report. Even in the grainy image, her eyes held that same fierce defiance. Someone had tried to break her. That was unacceptable. He told himself it was principle, strategy, control. But deep down, in a place he rarely acknowledged, Vincenzo knew the truth. He was furious because someone had dared to hurt what he was beginning to consider his. Ava, can I see you for a minute? Tony, the manager, stood in the doorway of his cramped office, arms crossed, face set in that expression that never meant anything good. Ava's stomach dropped. Sure. She followed him in. He closed the door. I'm going to be straight with you, Tony said, not bothering to sit. Your performance this week has been off. Customers are complaining. You snapped at a regular last night. You forgot 2 orders on Tuesday, and frankly, your attitude is affecting the whole floor. Tony, I'm sorry. I've just been dealing with some personal. I don't care about personal. His voice wasn't cruel, just exhausted. Everyone's got personal. But you show up, you smile, you do the job. That's the deal. And right now, you're not holding up your end. Ava's throat tightened. I understand. It won't happen again. It better not, because next time we have this conversation, you're gone. He opened the door. Get back out there. She walked out on shaking legs, fighting back tears that had no business existing in a restaurant dining room. Pull it together. You can't afford to lose this job. Malik needs you. Pull it together. From the corner booth, Vincenzo watched the entire exchange. He couldn't hear the words, but he could read body language fluently. The manager's aggressive posture. Ava's shrinking shoulders. The way she walked back to the server station with her head slightly bowed, jaw clenched against emotion. She was breaking. And she was doing it alone. His phone buzzed. Text from Romano. Message delivered. Vipers understood. Situation handled. Vincenzo typed back. Monitor. I want daily updates on both Morrisons. He watched Ava move through the dining room, still professional, still competent, but the light behind her eyes had dimmed. She would never ask for help. He understood that now. Pride wasn't just armor for her, it was survival. The moment she admitted she couldn't handle something, the moment she showed weakness, was the moment the world would devour her. So she would keep fighting, keep pushing, keep standing even as everything crumbled. Unless someone intervened. Vincenzo stood, left $200 on the table. Not for her this time, but for the restaurant, and walked out. In the car, he made 3 calls. The first was to his accountant. Anonymous payment. Coordinate with Romano for the details. The second was to his head of security. The Southside Vipers. I want surveillance. If they so much as look at the Morrison apartment, I want to know immediately. The third was to Romano. Find out everything about the manager, Tony. Employment history, financials, personal life. I want leverage if we need it. Sir, Romano said carefully, are you sure this is wise? Getting this involved. Vincenzo stared out the tinted window at the restaurant fading in the distance. No, he said honestly, but I'm doing it anyway. He hung up. Ava Morrison had looked him in the eye and refused to bow, had rejected his money, had challenged him in ways no one else dared, and now the world was trying to break her. Vincenzo Moretti had built an empire on ruthlessness, control, and calculated detachment. But as he sat in the back of his Mercedes, watching the city lights blur past, he realized something that should have terrified him. He wasn't going to let that happen. Not to her. The streetlight outside Ava's building had been broken for 3 weeks. She'd reported it twice. No one cared. So now she walked the last block home in darkness, keys threaded between her knuckles like makeshift brass knuckles, phone in her other hand with 911 pre-dialed. It was 11:53 p.m. The street was empty, silent except for distant traffic and the hum of someone's air conditioner. She was 10 feet from her building entrance when they stepped out of the shadows. 3 of them, Snake in the middle, flanked by 2 others she didn't recognize, all wearing dark hoodies despite the warm night, all blocking her path. Ava stopped, heart slamming against her ribs. Evening, Mama, Snake said, smile sharp as broken glass. Been looking for you. Get out of my way. Her voice was steadier than she felt. See, that's your problem. Always got that mouth on you. He stepped closer. You think you can just ignore us? Ignore what your brother owes. Malik doesn't owe you anything. You know that. I know that. This is extortion, and I'm done playing along. Snake laughed, cold, humorless. You're done?
Nah.
We decide when you're done. One of his friends moved to her left, the other to her right, surrounding her. Ava's grip tightened on her keys. I don't have your money. I've told you that. Then you got 48 hours to find it. Snake leaned in close enough that she could smell cigarettes and cheap cologne. Because after that, we stop asking nicely. We stop asking you at all. Ice flooded her veins. What does that mean? Means your little brother walks home from school every day. Same route. Same time. Lots of things can happen on that walk. His smile widened. Lots of accidents waiting to happen to a kid who don't watch where he's going. Don't you dare. Or what? Snake's voice dropped. You gonna call the cops? We already established they don't care. You gonna fight us? You? And what army? Ava wanted to run, wanted to scream, wanted to collapse under the weight of fear crushing her chest. Instead, she stepped forward, into his space, eyes blazing. You touch my brother, she said, voice shaking with rage, not fear, and I swear to God, I will make it my life's mission to destroy you. I don't care what it takes. I don't care what I have to do. You will regret it. For a second, just a second, something flickered in Snake's expression. Surprise. Maybe even respect. Then it vanished. 48 hours, he said. Or we'll see how tough you really are. They walked away, laughter echoing off the empty street. Ava stood there, keys still clutched in white-knuckled fists, entire body trembling. She made it into the building, up the stairs, through her apartment door, locked it, chained it, checked every window. Then she sank to the floor in the dark hallway and shattered. 2 blocks away, in a nondescript sedan, Marco, Vincenzo's surveillance specialist, lowered his camera. Boss is gonna lose it, muttered his partner, Dante. Marco was already dialing. The phone rang once. Report. Vincenzo's voice, sharp and immediate. Sir, they just cornered her outside her building. 3 of them made explicit threats against the brother. She held her ground, but Marco hesitated. She's scared, really scared. Silence on the other end. Then, send me the footage. Already uploading, sir. Where is she now? Inside her apartment. Alone. The brother's not home yet. Stay on her building. No one goes near that door. Understand? Yes, sir. The line went dead. Marco exchanged glances with Dante. He's going to burn them alive. Good, Dante said quietly, watching the dark windows of Ava's apartment. They earned it. Inside, Ava sat with her back against the door, knees pulled to her chest, silent tears streaming down her face. She'd been strong for so long, months, years, since her mother died. Since she'd become the only thing standing between Malik and the world. But she was so tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of being brave. Tired of pretending she could hold everything together with sheer willpower. She didn't have $800. Didn't have 80. The tips from tonight barely covered groceries. And now they were threatening Malik, her baby brother, the last piece of family she had left. Ava pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to muffle the sobs that wouldn't stop coming. She'd failed. Failed to protect him. Failed to keep them safe. Failed at the one thing that mattered. Her phone buzzed. Text from Malik. Staying at Jamal's tonight. Back tomorrow. At least he was somewhere safe. For now. Ava pulled herself up, stumbled to the bathroom, splashed cold water on her face, stared at her reflection, eyes red, face hollow, a woman on the edge of collapse. You have to figure this out, she whispered to herself. You have to. But she had no idea how. 40 minutes later, Vincenzo sat in his office watching the surveillance footage for the 3rd time. The way Snake stepped into her space. The way his men surrounded her. The implicit threat about Malik. And Ava, standing there in the dark, exhausted and terrified, but refusing to back down, until she got inside. The thermal camera had captured her collapse. The way she'd slid down the door like her strings had been cut. The shape of her body curled in on itself in the darkness. Breaking. Alone. Vincenzo's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. He picked up his phone. Called Romano. Sir? The Vipers, Vincenzo said, voice cold as winter. I want them brought in. All of them. Especially the one they call Snake. When?
Tonight. Now.
I want them scared. I want them sorry. And I want them to understand exactly what happens when they touch something that belongs to me. Romano paused. Sir, she doesn't belong to... Tonight, Romano. Yes, sir. Vincenzo hung up, stared at the frozen image of Ava on his screen, alone in the dark, finally broken. Enough, he said to the empty room. He'd watched long enough, stayed in the shadows long enough. They'd crossed a line, and now they would pay for it. Snake was counting money when the door exploded inward. Not literally, no dramatic crash, no splintering wood. Just the efficient click of a picked lock and the smooth swing of hinges that had been oiled into silence. By the time he looked up, there were 4 men in the room, all in dark suits. All with the kind of calm that came from knowing they were the most dangerous thing in a 5-mile radius. Yo, what the... The closest man, broad-shouldered, graying at the temples, eyes like black ice, raised one finger to his lips.
Sure.
Snake reached for the gun in his waistband. He didn't make it. 2 seconds later, he was on his knees, arm twisted behind his back at an angle that made his shoulder scream. The money scattered across the floor like confetti. Marcus Jennings, the gray-haired man said. Not a question. Also known as Snake. Small-time distribution. Extortion. Assault. And, most recently, threatening a young woman and her brother over fabricated debt. Snake's heart hammered. Man, I don't know what you... The pressure on his arm increased.
He gasped.
I'm not here for conversation, the man continued. I'm here to deliver a message. From someone far above your understanding. So you're going to listen very carefully. 3 blocks away, Demetrius was walking to his car when he felt the hand on his shoulder. He spun, found himself staring at a man in an expensive suit who smiled like a shark. Get in the car, the man said pleasantly. We need to talk about the Morrison family. By 2:17 a.m., every member of the Southside Vipers who'd been involved in pressuring Malik had been collected. Not arrested, not beaten, just collected. They were brought to an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the industrial district, the kind of place where screams didn't travel and bodies could disappear without paperwork. Romano stood in the center of the empty space, watching as 8 terrified young men were lined up against the wall. Some tried to look tough. Most just looked scared. Snake was in the middle, zip-tied, shoulders still aching. You have no idea how badly you messed up, Romano said conversationally. See, this city? It has rules, hierarchies. And you, all of you, just threaten someone under the protection of Vincenzo Moretti. The color drained from Snake's face. Oh, now you understand. Romano smiled without warmth. The Morrison family, Ava and Malik, are completely, permanently untouchable. The debt you fabricated?
Erased.
Your operation in their neighborhood?
Finished.
Your inventory, your stash houses, your contacts? As of tonight, they don't exist. Man, we didn't know. I don't care. Romano's voice dropped to a whisper. You made her cry. You made her afraid. And that is unacceptable. He gestured. His men moved forward with efficient brutality, confiscating phones, wallets, weapons, photographing faces, taking fingerprints. You have two choices, Romano continued. One, you leave the city. Tonight. You scatter. You never come back. You never speak the names Ava or Malik Morrison again. Not in conversation. Not in memory. They cease to exist in your world. Snake's jaw trembled. And the second choice? Romano's smile widened. You really want to know? Silence. That's what I thought. He turned to his men. Release them. The zip ties were cut. The 8 men stumbled toward the door, confused and terrified. Gentlemen, Romano called after them. If I see any of you within 5 miles of the Morrison apartment, if I hear you so much as looked at them wrong, you won't get a second warning. You'll just disappear. Are we clear? 8 heads nodded frantically.
Good.
Now get out of my sight. They ran. At 3:42 a.m., an anonymous tip was called into the police department. By 4:15 a.m., officers raided 3 addresses, stash houses belonging to the Southside Vipers. They found enough evidence to make a dozen arrests: drugs, illegal firearms, stolen merchandise, cash. By sunrise, the entire operation had collapsed. At 6:23 a.m., the landlord of the building where the Vipers operated received an envelope containing 6 months' rent and a polite note suggesting he find new tenants. By noon, the space was empty. Ava woke at 7:04 a.m. to silence. Not just quiet silence. No shouting from the street below. No groups of young men loitering on the corner. No bass-heavy music rattling windows. She sat up slowly, disoriented, walked to the window, looked down at the street. Empty.
Clean.
Normal. The corner where the Vipers usually gathered, vacant. The building they operated out of, dark, abandoned, like they'd never existed. Ava's breath caught. Her phone buzzed. Text from a number she didn't recognize. The debt is erased. You and your brother are safe. You will not be contacted again. No signature. No explanation. Just those 2 sentences. Ava stared at the message, heart pounding, mind racing. What the hell happened last night?
She got dressed.
Walked outside cautiously, expecting she didn't know what.
Threats.
Violence. Something. Instead, She found neighbors sitting on stoops drinking coffee, kids riding bikes, an old woman sweeping her steps.
Peace.
Like someone had reached down and surgically removed the cancer from her neighborhood. Mrs. Chun from apartment 3B waved. Beautiful morning, isn't it? Ava nodded numbly.
Yeah.
Beautiful. She walked the route Malik took to school. No one followed. No one watched. The streets felt lighter. Back home, she found Malik in the kitchen making cereal. Did something happen last night? She asked carefully. He looked up confused. Like what? I don't know. Just feels different outside. Malik shrugged. Jamal said the Vipers got raided or something. Whole crew's gone. Ava's stomach flipped. Gone where?
Dunno.
Just gone. He poured milk.
Why?
That's good, right? Yeah, she said slowly. That's good. But as she stood in her small kitchen, staring at the anonymous text message, Ava felt the pieces shifting in her mind. The timing, the precision, the completeness. This wasn't the police. This was something else. Someone else. And somehow, impossibly, she knew exactly who. Her hands started shaking.
Not from fear this time.
From something far more dangerous. In his office, Vincenzo watched the live surveillance feed of Ava standing in her kitchen, phone in hand, expression shifting from confusion to realization. Romano stood beside him. She's going to figure it out. I know. And when she does? Vincenzo's expression remained neutral. Then we'll deal with it. But inside, in that locked place he rarely acknowledged, he felt something unfamiliar. Anticipation. Because Ava Morrison had never reacted the way she was supposed to, and he couldn't wait to see what she did next. Vincenzo walked into La Serena at exactly 8:47 p.m., same as he had for the past week. But tonight was different. Tonight, Ava was waiting. She stood at the server station, arms crossed, jaw set, eyes tracking him from the moment he stepped through the door. No fake smile, no professional greeting, just raw, unfiltered intensity. He met her gaze. Something passed between them, electric, dangerous, inevitable. He walked to his usual booth. She followed. But this time, she didn't pull out her notepad, didn't ask about drinks or appetizers. She just stood there, hands on her hips, staring down at him with an expression somewhere between fury and something he couldn't quite name. What did you do? Her voice was low, controlled.
Deadly.
Vincenzo leaned back, fingers laced together on the table. You'll need to be more specific. Don't. She stepped closer. Don't play that game with me. The gang that was threatening my brother?
Gone.
Overnight. Like they never existed. The stash house? Raided. The debts? Erased. Her voice shook, not with fear, but with barely contained rage. I'm not stupid, so I'll ask you again. What did you do? The restaurant had gone quiet. Other diners pretended not to listen while hanging on every word. The kitchen staff stood frozen at the window. Vincenzo studied her. This woman who'd yelled at him, refused his money, stood her ground when everyone else cowered. I didn't do anything, he said calmly. Perhaps the police finally did their job. The police? Ava laughed, sharp, bitter. The police who ignored me when I filed a report? Who told me there was nothing they could do? Those police. Coincidences happen. Not like this. She leaned down, palms flat on his table, bringing herself to eye level. You had them removed.
Systematically. Completely.
And I want to know why. Silence stretched between them. Then Vincenzo smiled, small, genuine, dangerous. Because they touched you. Ava's breath caught. Because they made you afraid, he continued, voice soft. Because they threatened your brother. Because I watched you collapse in your own hallway and cry alone in the dark, thinking no one cared whether you survived or broke. Her eyes widened. You were watching me? I've been watching you since the first night. No apology. No shame. Just fact. You fascinated me. Still do. So, what? You decided to play God with my life? Fix my problems without asking? Control my world like you control everything else? Her voice rose. I didn't ask for your help.
No.
He stood now, forcing her to step back. You didn't. You would have let them destroy you before asking for help. You would have let your pride kill you. That was my choice. And it was my choice to intervene. His eyes bore into hers. I don't interfere with people who fear me, Ava. I interfere with people who stand up to me. People who look me in the eye and refuse to bend. Why? The word came out raw, desperate. Why do you care? For a moment, Vincenzo's carefully constructed mask slipped. Because you're the first person in 20 years who treated me like a man instead of a monster. The air left Ava's lungs. You didn't flinch, he continued quietly.
Didn't bow.
Didn't pretend. You saw someone being disrespectful, and you called it out, not because you knew who I was, but because you didn't care. You saw a man acting entitled, and you refused to tolerate it. He stepped closer.
She didn't retreat.
Everyone else in my life either fears me or wants something from me.
But you.
His voice dropped. You told me to get out. You refused my money. You treated me like I was nobody. And for the first time in 2 decades, I felt human. Ava's hands trembled. So, what? You decided to make me your charity case?
No.
I decided to protect something rare. His eyes held hers. Someone who refuses to break even when breaking would be easier. I didn't need your protection. You're alive because you have it. His tone hardened. Those men would have hurt your brother. Maybe worse. You know it. I know it. Ava wanted to argue, wanted to throw his words back in his face, wanted to maintain her anger. But she couldn't. because he was right. I don't want to owe you, she whispered. You don't. There are no conditions, no favors, no strings. He reached into his jacket. She tensed, but he only pulled out a business card, simple, elegant, just a phone number. This is for emergencies, real ones. When the world becomes too heavy and you're drowning. She stared at the card like it might burn her. I'm not asking for anything, Vincenzo said. I'm offering protection. That's all. Why? Her voice cracked. Why would you do this for someone you barely know? He smiled, sad, honest, achingly human. Because you're the only person who's ever yelled at me and meant it. The only person who's ever said no and held their ground. The only person who made me remember what it feels like to be seen as more than a weapon. Ava felt tears burning behind her eyes. She blinked them back furiously. I don't need saving. I know. That's why I'm not trying to save you. He turned toward the door. I'm just making sure no one destroys you while you save yourself. He walked out, left her standing there, business card in shaking hands, entire worldview tilting on its axis. Sophia rushed over the second the door closed. Girl, what just? I need a minute, Ava said quietly. She walked to the bathroom, locked herself in a stall, stared at the card. Just 10 digits. No name. No company. Just a lifeline from a man who terrified and confused and somehow saw her. She was furious, grateful, terrified, safe, all at once. And she had absolutely no idea what to do with any of it. Outside, in the Mercedes, Romano glanced at Vincenzo. How did she take it? Vincenzo stared out the window, expression unreadable. Like I expected, he said softly. Like someone who's never had anyone fight for her before. And now. Vincenzo's mouth curved. Now we wait and see if she calls. But deep down, he already knew. She wouldn't.
Not yet.
Because Ava Morrison didn't accept help easily. And that, more than anything, made him want to give it. 3 months later, Ava stood in the principal's office holding a progress report with Malik's name at the top. All A's and B's. Perfect attendance. Recommended for honors program. She read it twice to make sure it was real. Ms. Morrison, Principal Hayes said with a genuine smile, your brother has made remarkable progress. Whatever changed at home, keep doing it. Ava nodded, throat tight. Thank you. Outside, Malik waited on a bench, backpack slung over one shoulder, looking more like the kid she remembered from before everything went dark. So, he asked nervously. She held up the report. His face broke into a grin. Real, unguarded, young. Malik. Her voice cracked. I'm so proud of you. He ducked his head, embarrassed but pleased. It's not that big a deal. It's everything. She pulled him into a hug. He let her, just for a moment, before pulling away with a teenager's requisite awkwardness. On the walk home, he talked about joining the robotics club, about a girl named Shanice who sat next to him in chemistry, about college applications and scholarships and futures that suddenly felt possible again. Ava listened, heart full, thinking about how close they'd come to losing all of this. How one night, one intervention she didn't ask for, had changed everything. La Serena Trattoria had settled into a new rhythm. Every Thursday at 8:30 p.m., Vincenzo Moretti walked through the door. He sat in the same corner booth, ordered the same meal, baked ziti, water with no ice. Left the same generous tip for the restaurant, never specifically for Ava. And she served him like any other regular. Professional, efficient, but something had shifted. The first time she brought him coffee, black, no sugar, without him ordering it, he looked up, surprised. "You drink it every night," she'd said simply. Seemed easier. He nodded,
said nothing.
But something softened in his expression. Now it was routine. She'd bring the coffee. He'd accept it with a slight incline of his head. They'd exchange maybe 3 sentences the entire evening. But the silence between them was no longer hostile. It was understanding. Tonight, the dinner rush had been brutal. 2 servers called in sick, the kitchen was behind, and Ava had been running nonstop for 6 hours. But when she brought Vincenzo his coffee at 9:47 p.m., she paused. "Can I sit for a minute?" He gestured to the seat across from him. She slid into the booth, exhausted, feet aching, but something had been weighing on her for weeks. "I never said thank you," she said quietly. Vincenzo set down his coffee. "For what?" "Don't." She gave him a look, the same one from their first confrontation, but gentler now. "You know exactly what." He smiled slightly. "I didn't do it for thanks." "I know, but I'm saying it anyway." She met his eyes. "You gave my brother his life back. You gave me my life back. And I
didn't know how to process that.
Part of me was angry. Part of me was terrified. Part of me wanted to throw it all back in your face because I've never." She stopped, took a breath. "I've never had anyone fight for me before. Not like that. Not without wanting something in return. I don't want anything, Ava. I know. That's what scared me most." She looked down at her hands. "My whole life, I've learned that help comes with strings. Conditions.
Debts.
So when you just fixed everything and walked away, I didn't know what to do with that. So, what are you doing with it now?" She looked up, learning to accept it, and saying thank you, even if you don't need to hear it. For a long moment, Vincenzo just watched her. Then something extraordinary happened. He smiled. Not the cold, calculating smile she'd seen that first night. Not the dangerous curve of lips that preceded violence. A real smile.
Warm.
Human.
Rare.
"You're welcome," he said softly. Ava felt something shift in her chest. not attraction, not exactly. Something deeper. Recognition. Respect. The understanding that this man, for all his darkness, had seen her at her lowest and chosen to lift rather than exploit. I should get back to work, she said, standing. Ava. She turned. Your brother, Vincenzo said. He's doing well? Better than I hoped. Honor roll. Talking about college. Good. He picked up his coffee. That's good. She walked away, but felt his eyes follow her. Not possessive, not threatening. Protective, like a guardian who asked for nothing but gave everything. At 11:34 p.m., Ava locked the restaurant's front door. The street was dark, quiet. The same streetlight still broken. The same shadows pooling in familiar corners. But as she walked toward home, keys in hand, she felt something she hadn't felt in years.
Safe.
She glanced back at the restaurant, saw the black Mercedes idling 2 blocks down, barely visible in the darkness. Saw it follow at a distance as she walked. Saw it wait until she was inside her building before driving away. She should have been angry. Should have felt violated by the surveillance, the presumption, the continued monitoring. Instead, she felt protected, because the man she'd once yelled at, the man everyone else feared, had become the invisible wall between her and a world that had tried to break her. He didn't ask for gratitude, didn't demand recognition, didn't even acknowledge what he was doing. He just did it. And for the first time in her adult life, Ava Morrison didn't have to carry the weight of the world alone. In the Mercedes, Vincenzo watched her door until the lights came on in her apartment. Watched until he was certain she was safe. Romano sat in the passenger seat, silent. How long are we going to keep this up? He finally asked. Vincenzo's expression was unreadable. Until she doesn't need it anymore. And if that day never comes? Vincenzo started the engine, pulling away from the curb. Then we keep watching, he said simply. Because some people are worth protecting. Not because they're weak, but because they're too strong to realize when they need help. Romano nodded slowly. She changed you, boss.
No.
Vincenzo's eyes remained on the road. She reminded me what I used to be, before all of this, before the empire, before the fear. And what was that? For the first time in years, Vincenzo Moretti allowed himself to remember the boy he'd been before violence became currency, before power became oxygen. Human, he said quietly. She reminded me I'm human. And as the city lights blurred past, he smiled, small, private, genuine, because somewhere in this brutal, unforgiving city, a fearless waitress was sleeping soundly. And for Vincenzo Moretti, the man who controlled everything, that was enough. So, what do you think? Did Ava and Vincenzo's story ended the way you expected? Drop a comment and let me know. Have you ever been the person who saw past the chaos to the heart underneath? Or have you needed someone to see you that way? If you love this story about a broke single mom and a mafia boss who found redemption, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. I post new emotional, dramatic love stories every day, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Like this video if you want more stories about found families, about single parents finding love again, about children bringing people together. Your likes tell me you want more stories about real love. Messy, chaotic, beautiful, chosen love. This is Blissful Stories, where families are built through choices, not biology. Where breakfast can change everything, and where the best love stories start with someone being brave enough to stay when everyone else runs. Until tomorrow, remember, you don't have to be perfect to be exactly what someone needs. Sometimes all it takes is patience and kindness.